football.
I think that numbers will continue to decline because of all the things that we are continuing to learn from medical professionals.
The reported immediate and long-term dangers from concussions are the reason. And the gatekeepers of youth participation are America's moms.
If mothers don't believe there are programs that are safe, that are attuned to the needs of the child, football will suffer.
So the NFL is going after the mothers.
You all are the ones that are the responsible ones. You're the ones that make sure you have the right information.
Even using his wife, a news anchor.
Kids are more likely to get injured on their bike going to sports practice than they are on the sports field.
Are they trying to fool some of these moms into believing that they can make football a lot safer?
Today outside the lines, the National Football League courting the football moms of America.
And now, reporting for Outside the Lines, Bob Lee.
3 months ago, Outside the Lines reported exclusively that the nation's largest youth football program, Pop Warner, had suffered a major decline in participation, a nearly 10% drop between 2010 and 2012. Those years directly mirror the sudden national attention on the problem of concussions. At least 7 youngsters across the United States died last year playing youth football. It was one of the most deadly years in the past quarter century. The National Football League is the focus of the media glare on football safety, but sheer numbers mean the real social concern is at the youth level. And that's where the moms of America have become a coveted demographic for the NFL. Outside the lines, Tom Ferry went to Eden Prairie, Minnesota. That's the town where the Vikings train. It's the town where the high school has won 9 state championships in 17 years. And he went there to see what football moms there feel about this game and their kids.
It's winter now in Eden Prairie. Football season has wrapped, and another state championship is in the books.
Touchdown, Eden Prairie!
Despite so much success, Eden Prairie football has a problem. Kids are fleeing the game. In 2008, there were 803 children between 3rd and 8th grade who played. Last season, there were just 532. Outside the Lines assembled a panel of local parents to ask why. Youth football participation here in Eden Prairie, I mean, the mecca, the heart of football in Minnesota, is down by about 1/3. Why?
All of a sudden, we were bombarded by the media and the NFL, and all these stories came out, and I think they were like, oh, I don't want my kid doing that.
I think that numbers will continue to decline because of all the things that we are continuing to learn from medical professionals.
All of the panelists assembled by Outside the Lines are moms who have had to decide whether to allow their sons to play tackle football.
Mothers play a huge role in most household decisions.
Tom Cove runs the Sports and Fitness Industry Association, which annually surveys U.S. households on sport participation rates.
How's the show going?
Good. We're introducing a new helmet.
What's happening in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, is happening across the country. The latest report from Cove's group shows that those who play football on a regular basis and at all age levels dropped for the 5th straight year. It's down 14% since 2007, a loss of more than 500,000 players.
If mothers don't believe there are programs that are safe, that are attuned to the needs of the child, football will suffer. We need to educate them as to what good programs are. Coaches that have been trained, techniques that are taught.
That's how you run the ball.
The NFL knows this.
You ready? Set, go!
The league hosted several high-profile moms clinics in recent months, inviting mothers to learn about helmets.
Because you don't want the chin strap to twist.
New tackling techniques.
Nice.
And why the NFL says mothers should keep their kids in the game.
How'd you do?
At the center of the effort is NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell.
You all are the ones that are the responsible ones. You're the ones that make sure you have the right information, and we want to be responsive and make sure that you have the best information.
I have a good friend whose son is a quarterback in the Upper East.
That's Jane Skinner, wife of the commissioner, leading a moms panel at a clinic in Chicago.
Friends of hers come up to her and say, how can you do this? And she said, I go home, some nights I cry because I feel like I'm feeding my child rat poison. The peer pressure is very intense. How do you deal with it?
Football is an inherently dangerous activity, as is walking down the street, taking a bus, ice skating, you name it.
Roger Goodell headlined the annual conference of the Parent-Teacher Association, which the NFL partnered with last year.
There's a lot of information out there, and a lot of misinformation, which is almost as difficult.
It's all part of a sophisticated, multi-pronged campaign to win over a tough audience.
Ready? Go! Nice.
We wanted to speak with Goodell about it. The league declined our request.
At a young age, my son Spencer had a very bad concussion.
Brooke DeLench is founder and publisher of Mom's Team, a website for sports parents that launched in 2000.
To see somebody at the national level of an organization that is built on aggression, violence, bigger, meaner, faster men, deciding that now they're going to be the experts in youth sports. It doesn't square with me.
Come on,
Despite her comment, DeLench supports tackle football for kids. Her website even supplies articles for NFL Evolution, the league's official website focused on safety concerns.
My fear is that they're not talking about the right topics. If they're spending a lot of time and teaching a mom how to tackle, I don't think they should be wasting their time on that.
Doesn't the NFL deserve some credit for improving the game?
Absolutely. But we need to really be talking about the right issues. And until you really are in the trenches, you're not going to know what the problems are.
Christina Foudre is in the trenches. She's a mother of 4 boys, all in grade school.
My oldest 11-year-old played 2 years of tackle football. This year he's in 5th grade, then chose not to play.
Why?
He didn't exactly say, just said he didn't want to, but last year he did get a concussion.
How'd that happen?
On a tackle. And so the EMT came and asked the typical questions and said he was fine to go back in. The next morning is when the symptoms really showed up. Had a hard time thinking and just a blinding headache, which lasted for probably about 5 days.
A trip to the doctor confirmed what even an EMT missed, that Foudre's son had a concussion. Still, she continues to let 2 of her other boys play football.
Is football really more dangerous than any other sport? I don't know that I can say yes to that either.
I'm sure I can convince my husband that after 5th grade, there's no more football, because to me, they're bigger, they're stronger, and they hit harder.
Robert Cantu, who's a prominent doctor out of Boston, if the NFL adopted his suggestion that kids under 14 not play tackle, only flag, how much would that count with the mothers of America?
I think it would have a really huge impact, because the NFL has, you know, they have so much influence on people's decisions.
The guidance that we've been given as parents is they don't necessarily need to play any earlier than that.
I think it would be helpful to know what are the risks.
And where are you looking for answers?
Mostly it's just other parents.
Enter the mommy bloggers, another target audience in the NFL effort to shape the conversation. On the internet, by one count, there are 3.9 million such bloggers. In August 2012, the NFL invited a couple dozen bloggers to league headquarters in New York, where they met with Goodell and heard talks on NFL efforts to reform the game. Youth sport analyst Brooke DeLench was there.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. People who really are looking at this very carefully are scratching their heads and saying, what's going on here? Are they trying to fool some of these moms into believing that they can make football a lot safer?
1, 2, 3, hands up!
or that the game is safe already relative to other activities. At that meeting, the NFL distributed a handout stating, quote, bicycles are the #1 reason for visits to the ER for a concussion in kids 19 and younger, a claim that has become a mantra within football circles. Here's Skinner citing a neurosurgeon friend.
Your kids are more likely to get injured on their bike going to sports practice than they are on the sports field.
Actually, according to the Centers for Disease Control, only children between the ages of 5 and 9 visit emergency rooms more frequently from bicycle accidents. Between the ages of 10 and 19, football is the leading cause. And during the high school years, football has 3 times as many concussions as any other sport or activity.
I'm going to advocate for my kids and my family and the community to let's figure out why this is happening. I don't want to strip them of anything, but at the same time, I do want to protect them. So that's my take on it. And if I have to kind of do the whole scare tactic, well, you can get injured, then I might have to, you know, go that route. So,
how much of a stigma is it to be that mom who pulls her kid out of the sport?
I feel like you got to do what's in your heart and not have regret. And then if there's a stigma to it, if that's really what you believe, then somehow you find a way to deal with that.
Do you think moms now are starting to exert their voice in a more assertive way than they have in the past?
Absolutely, without a doubt. It's just not Dad's deal anymore. Dad's not the only one out in the field. Dad's not taking them to practice. Dad's not picking them up from the games. Moms are the team managers, and they're getting more involved, and they should.
Tom Ferry in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Now, April 15th, registration opens in town for this year's youth football. They tell us there that between 550 and 575 kids will likely be registering for the 3rd through 8th grade leagues. That would be a 3% increase over last year, though still 32% below the participation level of 8 years ago. The choice of letting your kid play, that's something that Patrick Ruby has reported on. You read him regularly and enjoy him at sportsonearth.com. Youth football, the NFL, and the targeting of moms and their power in the marketplace. That's something Maria Bailey knows well. She's the author of the book Power Moms. We also say hello to Peter Caron. He is the player safety coach out in Eden Prairie for the Eden Prairie Football Association. Welcome all. Peter, we heard from some moms right in your neighborhood. What do you think about their analysis of why the numbers are down?
Well, I think, one, we all want to be advocates for our kids, regardless of whether it's football or any activity. That being said, I think the numbers, there's a number of things which go into it. Our school enrollment in Eden Prairie happens to also be down over that same period of time.
32%?
Certainly more, not 32%, but it's about 10%. So that brings that number down. Same thing, kids are specializing in sports earlier. I have a nephew who used to play baseball, football, soccer, and he decided to start concentrating in soccer. So we have kids focusing more in that regard. There are more sports offered as well. And across the board, whether we're talking baseball, football, basketball, etc., the numbers of youth enrollment in sports is down. So the effective number, our numbers down? Absolutely. Are they down by a third? Or, you know, I think that might not be as accurate a number to reflect any changes when it comes to our children's safety.
As we said, also possibly a 3% increase. Maria, insofar as the issue, as you heard articulated by these mothers, they see it, at least in the scope of that interview, as one of safety. What do they need to hear?
Well, you know, moms want transparency and they want honesty and they want to know what is being done to keep their child safe. But you know, the issue is safety, but it goes beyond that. You know, the NFL needs to communicate with the mom market in a way that moms can understand. And
where have they been falling short?
Well, you know, it's not only the message of safety, but, you know, if you have a mom who has 3 hours after school to transport 4 children to 5 different enrichment activities, it's not only the safety of them, but what are they going to get out of that enrichment? So, you know, we've been really focused on safety, but it's also, you know, the character building and everything else that goes along with the decision of does my child play football Or does the NFL communicate stories like Derek Coleman and Richard Sherman and show the character building too? So there's got to be a balance between the benefit and the growth and the safety issue. And then moms will make a decision based on all that information.
But you talk about transparency, Maria. Certainly one of the criticisms over the last 20, 25 years, not so much in the last 5 years or so, has been that the National Football League was suppressing some forms of science, was promoting some bad science, had an unqualified individual at the head of the concussion committee back in the 1990s. Given that allegation, which was at the heart of the concussion suit against the league, doesn't that play to the transparency as well?
It does, but you know, quite honestly, this is like the first time that the NFL's ever spoken to moms about anything. You know, their idea of marketing to women is to put out a pink Packer jersey, you know, and to run an ad in Marie Claire. So I think that just opening the channels of communication is the first step, and then having that dialogue and inviting moms. That's great that they had 12 mom bloggers go to New York, but the conversation needs to be much broader than that.
Patrick, is this a conversational issue? Is this a medical issue? Is this a marketing issue? What is this?
I mean, from what I see, I think the NFL is treating it primarily as a marketing issue. I mean, the people that are actually in charge of their youth football safety initiatives are marketing people. If you go back and look at the sort of mid-2000s, the NFL and the Players Association at one point were spending tens of millions of dollars a year on marketing the game to young children. If you go back even farther to the 90s, Paul Tagliabue brought in MTV executives to market the game to kids, and they explicitly said, look, we want to get a football in their hands as young as possible before they get a basketball, hockey stick, something else in their hands. And so obviously they're not stupid. They realize that getting kids into football is good for their bottom line going forward because those kids become adults with disposable income. But when you look at the actual messages that the NFL has been sending to mothers, I don't know if they are giving complete or accurate information. I think that they're they're downplaying the risks of the game. I mean, one of the big initiatives they have through USA Football, their youth arm, is Heads Up, which is something that your network has done some really good reporting on.
In fact, Peter is a certified Heads Up coach.
That's right. Well, the thing about Heads Up, you know, you hear the NFL say, look, we don't have enough data to really link brain damage to football. But you turn around, there's no data to support the idea that Heads Up makes the game safer.
Peter, your reaction?
Well, what I would say, the message of Heads Up is a message of education, of changing the culture of the game. Gone are the days of the coaches I had who are, you know, walk it off. That's not going to be the case anymore. The mantra is, when in doubt, pull them out. So that child, as somebody mentioned earlier in the piece, who got put back into play after suffering an injury, that's not the case anymore. So through USA Football, sure, there's discussion about equipment fitting and tackling and whatnot, but it's also education. It's education of the coaches who are on the sidelines to be able to identify the signs and symptoms and pull the child out when it's appropriate. It's education of the parents, empowering them to, as well, understand the signs and symptoms and what's the protocol should your child get injured, as well, when is it appropriate for that child to return to play, and even to go one step further, empowering the kids. I can promise you, when I was playing youth football, if I had walked up to my coach and said, boy, coach, I don't feel good, I can't necessarily repeat what he would have said to me on the sidelines. I would have gotten back in the game.
Peter, professionals don't even say that, though, and you know that's half the problem with reporting concussions. So teaching kids to say that is even that much more difficult.
Well, it's, you know what, it's the culture is changing. So is it going to happen overnight? No, absolutely. But this is a start, and I feel we're going in the right direction.
Maria, how much power do the moms have in this? Because this has been posited by some as an existential issue for the National Football League. This is the pipeline issue. How much power do the moms have here?
You know, moms control upwards of 90% of the decision making. You know, their spouses and partners might not like to admit it, but they control the buying power in the household. And if it's going to be writing a check to Pop Warner, if it's going to be buying the equipment, if it's going to be spending her time in the minivan driving to practices, she controls, you know, 99% of that. So they are the decision makers, and I do think that, you know, moms are practical people too. You know, I've been in the back of an ambulance with my son after he was hit and had to be taken to the hospital on a football field. Both of my sons are involved in collegiate football teams. And, you know, I think what happens is you just have to educate the moms on what the safety issues are, what's being done to help them, and then they will make the decisions that are best for their family. And, you know, when you see your child and you see the passion in their eyes, you're going to weigh the pros and cons.
It's interesting you talk about educating the moms. Now, Patrick, I know you're familiar with the Esquire television program Friday Night Tykes, and I know you're familiar with the fact that just last week, 2 coaches were suspended from that San Antonio area league, one based on the way he was instructing his kids to hit. 3 weeks prior to that, that footage was out. In fact, we showed it on this program. We talked with the president of the league. And we talked with a mom from the league. This was not secret behavior, yet it took only the publicity for moms and dads and the officials in that league to take action.
Well, you know, I think it's good that, you know, if you have a coach that's out there encouraging like really bad behavior, it's good that they're suspended. But the thing about football is that getting hit in the head in football is not an accident. It's baked into the game. That's why they're wearing helmets in the first place. And, you know, having certain kind of tackling techniques and whatnot, those only go so far. It's an inherently dangerous game. And the real question is it too dangerous for kids of a certain age, of all ages? And, you know, people have said you need good information to answer that. We do need good information. We need unbiased information. I'm not sure that you're going to get either one of those things from the NFL when they have a tremendous financial interest in preserving the sport, and they have a track record of obscuring the danger.
Peter, just a final word from you. We've heard all these age questions. You're a heads-up coach. You're speaking to a lot of moms, I would assume, right now. You're Dr. Cantu's 14-year prohibition. What age do you think is proper for kids to play tackle football, youngest?
You know, that's a great question. I think a lot of that, to Maria's point, is educating the parents to make decisions that's in the best interest of their family.
For your kids, how old would it be?
You know what? My youngest started playing football when he was in 3rd grade, and
AJ?
We had a good experience.
All right, and
yes.
I know you believe it's brought a lot to him, and I'm sure he's doing well. Patrick Ruby, Maria Bailey, Peter Karen, thank you all very much for joining us today Outside the Lines. Appreciate your time.